In 2000, the bridge is the longest road and rail bridge in Europe and connects Copenhagen with Malmö. It took 5 years to build, and it was completed 3 months ahead of schedule, despite the discovery, during construction, of 16 unexploded World War II bombs lying on the seabed. The bridge is just one part of the crossing, as about halfway the road and railway disappear into a tunnel on an artificial island. This provides a clear channel for ships and a safe approach for landing aircraft at the airport. North of Copenhagen, at Rungsted, is the house of one of Denmark's best-known 20th century writers, Karen Blixen. She is best known for her book, Out of Africa, an account of her life in that continent, which was made into an Oscar-winning film starring Meryl Streep in 1985. Apart from her years in Africa, she spent her childhood and later life here at her parents' manor house. And it's where she died in 1962. The house is now a museum dedicated to her life and work. 5 miles up the coast at Humlebæk is the most visited art museum in Denmark, the Louisiana Museum of Modern Art. The permanent collection features works from the 1940s from some of the best-known artists, including Picasso, Warhol and Lichtenstein. In the grounds is a sculpture garden overlooking the sea, including a work by Henry Moore. The museum was created in 1958 by the then owner of the property, and since then new galleries have been added to house the growing collection, which now stands at more than 3,000 works of art. This is Frederiksborg Castle, and the largest Renaissance palace in Scandinavia, which is now the Museum of National History. It was built between 1602 and 1620 by King Christian IV on 3 small islands in a lake close to Hillerød, and replaced an earlier castle. For the next 200 years, the castle was used as a royal residence, as well as a place for the anointing and crowning of Danish monarchs. In 1859, a disastrous fire destroyed much of the interior. The reconstruction was funded by public subscription, as well as a large donation from the Carlsberg brewing magnate Carl Jacobsen, on the condition that the castle was turned into a museum. The magnificent Baroque garden is away from the house across the lake and was laid out in the 1720s. A restoration program was begun in 1995 to bring the gardens back to their original design. A few miles to the north, on the shore of Lake Esrum, is Frederiksborg Palace, the Danish royal family's spring and autumn residence. It's also the most used of all the royal residences and is often the site of important state visits. It was built in the 1720s for King Frederick IV as a small pleasure palace. During construction, a peace treaty with Sweden was signed at the unfinished building, ending a 20-year conflict. The palace was then named Frederiksborg, which translates as the Palace of Peace. In the 1750s, the main palace block was extended with the addition of 4 identical corner pavilions. The large formal garden layout still exists, though most of the planting has been replaced by grass. And the palace and gardens are open to the public during the summer months. Overlooking the narrow strait between Denmark and Sweden is Kronborg Castle, one of the most important Renaissance-style castles in the world. There has been a fortress on this site since the 15th century, when Danish kings decided to charge a toll for ships entering and leaving the Baltic Sea. The present building dates from the end of the 16th century. It was captured by the Swedes in 1658 and showed that it was not impregnable, so that after its return to Denmark, the defences were beefed up with additional lines of ditches and ramparts, making Kronborg the most formidable fortress in Europe. By the 18th century, the fortress was being used as a prison, as well as a military fort, and this continued until the early 1900s, when the army left and the castle was renovated and opened as a museum. But perhaps the castle is best known around the world as Elsinore, and the setting for William Shakespeare's famous play, Hamlet. Shakespeare never set foot in Denmark, yet when he wrote the play around 1600, he imagined it perfectly. And today the play is often performed in this magnificent castle, and a perfect place to end this journey.